Hi, this is Mark Lockley from Snooker Crazy. I've been asked by Kev Wheeler, a cue maker for down in the southwest of England, to have a look at some of his resin tips that we're going to be stocking on Snooker Crazy once he's finished the actual sizing and designs. He makes them in different colours. They're all a resin type material, so lots of different colours. They're 11.3 millimeters as a standard. But from what I understand, Kev's probably going to make them anything up to about 14 mil. So I think that you'll find they'll be a little bit larger than this because obviously they're all for a break cue. So what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to fit one of these and see how that goes. I've got no idea how it's going to react. I'm going to fit it to a cue that's an old break cue, so the ferrule's not quite square. Now I've already taken the tip off of this one and just taken a scalpel just to remove the excess glue from the old tip and make sure it's flat. And the way I make sure it's flat is to just put a straight edge on the top and turn it against the light. I can't do it in here because it's basically got a fluorescent light above me and it's quite a confined space. Right, so resin tips, yeah, pretty hard. The bottom is very, very smooth, so we need to get that to grip really, and I'd like to roughen that slightly. Now, what I would probably do to start with is I tend to have lots of different types of sandpapers on basically an old bit of flooring to make sure they're flat. Personally, whether it be a leather tip or whether it be this resin type one, I would at least try and do a figure of 8 on that and just see whether it takes much off. Not doing it on 240. I've worked on a few plastics over the time, so generally if I wanted to take a bit off, it'd be an 80. An 80 seems way too much, but we're only skimming. So we'll just try and get a little bit of a rough edge. So I'm doing this in the video, I'd normally do it on the bench. But to do it standing up's a little bit different. Yeah, that feels a little bit rougher. So we'll go with that. Many types of glues. I'm going to use one that goes off in 45 seconds. This isn't going to give me much of a chance. It's a CA glue. We should use it in pretty much a ventilated area, but so I'm not going to do too much of this. And it's not going to give me very much time to get it on there. So if I were to use a leather tip, I would normally cut across, like a noughts and crosses in the bottom, just to let the glue go up a little bit. What we're going to do with this one, just pop a bit on and then I'm going to central. I don't really have a lot of overlap here. I tend to like a little bit of overlap with something like that. So it's going to take probably about a minute to go off. So we'll see. But I would use a gel type one, if depending on which glue you've got. So have a look on the back. So this is the one I'm going to use anyway. Right. Now I've got a flat piece of old flooring on the floor. What I'm going to do basically is try and get this to sit on there, leave it for, I think it says 45 seconds, so about a minute. We'll hold that down, and then I'm going to, probably on this one, I'll probably cut down the tip, so I'm going to invert the cue so the tip's on the floor, on the flat edge, cut down it, and I'm more interested to see how this cuts with the knives. And I've got 3 different types of knives that I'll probably try. I've got this, what is a Magnuson type knife. It's got the snap-off blades. I'll try and use something that you guys would probably use, so that's pretty sort of handy person type thing. I've got a Fat Max blade with a not reasonably sharp blade, but I would have it sharp normally. So I'm trying to use something reflective of what you might have. And then I've got, if I really need to, I've got a scalpel which is ultra sharp, which you'd have to really be careful with your fingers because it will slice straight through them quite easily. And I'm fitting this to a ferrule that's not exactly great, so we're going to try and tidy that up. It's got glue and God knows what all over it already. So I'm just trying to use something that might reflect where you're at. It's not exactly square, it's off at an angle, so it'll be interesting to see what the tip's like when we get it on there. Right, so we've roughened the tip up. Not much, but just enough I think. So let's give it a go. Right. Now I'm going to have to do this fairly quick, so I'm not quite sure what that's going to be like on the video, so you might have to bear with me. Not going to put lots on. I tend to put it on both surfaces, which is not common for a lot of guys. this might be a bit slippery. When I put it on there I tend to move it around a little bit, so we'll try and get it central. But being plastic it's going to want to slide. Let's try and get it a bit sticky to start with. Right, now we're going to try and central it. Okay, now I'm going to hold that down with my finger to start with. It's going to try and cure pretty quick. Now, because this one's a slider, when you put it on there, because it's two types of plastics, that's probably the bit of fun you're going to have. You're going to put it on, go to push it, and if you don't push straight down, it's going to push off the side, and then before you know it, you're going to put a bit of super glue on your fingers, down the sides of the lot. I suggest you probably put some masking tape below the ferrule and that, because it can end up being quite fun. So, I've had that on there for, you'll be able to see on the video, a little while, so 10 seconds or so. That's generally how long I'd probably hold my finger on there. I'm putting a bit of pressure on there. Now, some of these glues, they'll actually get you to leave it overnight. Some of them are sort of 60 minutes. Some of the CA ones and that, you can actually use a spray activator. So if you're a hobbyist and you've got something like that, you can actually put it on both sides. So I just put it on the top and then just spray the bottom. What that does is just make it go off quicker. The glue I've got, if I want it to go off quicker, that's a 45-second one. I've actually got a 20-second one. And you don't have much time. So to put it on there, move the tip round, and you certainly don't want to do that in front of people. Right, I'm going to invert the cue. So I should be able to take my finger off now. Move the flat edge down. I will push the camera down so you can see roughly. I'm going to see whether you can see me cutting. I'm going to cut down on this one using the side of the ferrule as a guide. So it shouldn't touch the ferrule, the blade, it will just start to slice it. And that way you shouldn't damage anything. So a little bit difficult to see. But we'll start with this one. I have no idea how this is going to cut. So some different acrylics and that and resins, they all cut differently. So I'm trying to hold a bit of pressure down a little bit longer. So I'm not sure we're up to a minute or not. But I guess the biggest thing for you guys when you're doing it would be holding it square. So you want to practice holding the tip on there and having a look. Depending on what glue you use, you want to maybe use some gloves to protect your fingers. And as I said, masking tape's probably a must if you don't fit many tips. Right, now I'm not really giving it a lot of time, so we'll give it a go anyway, because I like to sort of push through as if we might have made a mistake and just see what happens. But nice sharp blade, always using a nice new one if you can. These are snap-off ones, so just take off the blunt bits. I'm going to slice down now using the side of the ferrule. A bit difficult to see in here because it's a nice dark green tip, and so I'm using fluorescent light, but it seems to be cutting pretty good. It's cutting like little chips off the side, little chips of the tip, so not too bad. So I'm not going to go mad at it. So I'm going to do it slowly if I can. So don't take you notice the ferrule, it's not great. Now I would think, even if you got the 14mm tips, I think that blade would actually cut through quite nicely. So as you're cutting down, just turn the cue slightly with your hand. Right, let's see if I can get this on the video. I'm going to try and angle the knife across, just to see whether it cut. I don't know if you can actually see that, but let's just try. You have a bigger screen than my phone, that's for sure. Yeah, it's just starting to cut. Now as I'm doing this, cutting it like that, I'm actually going to slowly bring it up. When I bring it up, it's going to do the top of the tip. So it actually cuts quite nice. Now what you want to do is keep away from the ferrule, obviously. And as you're doing that, just spin it slowly. I'll start on the bottom, and as I want to move up the tip, I'll actually bring it up more. Now, I would say the art of this is not to rush it. If you take your fingers up, you can feel whether the tip is sticking out proud of the ferrule. And what I would normally do is cut a bit, and through this door I've got a tip fitting room, so I can actually go and look at the tip and look at it against the light. So you're looking for the side of the ferrule and for it to continue up. But if you go cutting loads off at a time, once you go too far, you have to take the tip off. So I would just keep doing that with a light. I haven't got any in here, so this is going to be a little bit by eye. And I'm going to slowly bring the base of the blade upwards, so I'm cutting the top. So it's just trying to look for a white edge really, and you'll see the base of it, of the tip, level with the ferrule with your eye, and then slowly try and cut the top. So actually, if you try and take a little bit of time with a sharp knife, they cut really well, so that's a big plus. So the objective really, I would say, is to try and get the tip as central as you can. Otherwise, if you can't, I mean, with this it'll be uniform all the way through as regards how dense it is. Then you'll just have to chop the side off that's the bigger overlap, and as long as you've got one side that's at least slightly proud of the ferrule, then you can start to slowly do this. But if you've got one side that's proud, I would just spin it a little bit at a time, inverting it until you got them reasonably level all the way around, and then carry on. So I'll carry on and do that for a second. So less is more really. The more you take your time, the less work you're probably going to have to do. As I say, this is pretty beaten up ferrule. Got glue all over it by the looks of it, so I'm not quite sure where this cue's been. Sometimes I get trade-ins. Yeah, it's just at the top at the moment, so no rush. If the blade starts to go like that, it's probably because it's not too sharp, so go to the next bit. Otherwise you just end up taking little lumps out the side. You certainly want it to peel, so it's a minute amount of time, and this is actually cutting pretty good. So no rush. You can actually keep an eye and see where it's actually cutting off from, so you can see whether it is from the top or not. Now we're pretty much there. I can see. So it's you'd probably be better off in the video seeing your end. But I say the purpose of the video is not for me to do the perfect tip. It's really to show you how these tips cut and how they fit. But it certainly cuts very nice, yeah. So I would stick with a knife like that if you can. Right, that's not bad actually. Right, what else can we do with that? Right, normally if I was to do this, to roll this and level this up, I would actually put it on my thighs. So I'll put it like that. Not got a lot of room here, but I'll put a paper on there, pick whatever grade I want, and then I would roll it backwards and forwards so I can feel it actually taking the ferrule, the top of the ferrule down perfectly with it. But you can do it with a knife, but I know some people are going to struggle with that, and I would just continue until you get that perfectly level, but just taking a slither at a time. But let's try a little bit more. So where are we at now? Yeah, not much in that. It's going pretty good. Now I don't know what this is going to be like with papers, so I brought a few here. Well, I'm not really wanting to go straight into something like an 80. That I would hope that wouldn't be the one. So we'll start with 600 and just see if it makes any impact at all on it. As I say, if you're going like this, there's lots of different ways you can do this, but we're just going to try and get a slight dome, as it's a brake cue tip and it doesn't need lots. I just want to see how it reacts, whether it takes a lot off. So I'm just basically going down and skimming the edges. Not lots coming off, but it's not a bad thing. I don't really want it to grind right in. See little bits coming off occasionally. That's pretty good actually. Right, now I would probably leave it there, but let's just, for the sake of the video, 6 and 240 on and see what that does to it. So you might want to have a different shape and take a lot more off. So I'm catching it there and then skimming it. This is the way I like to do it. There's lots of ways to do it. Yeah, that's interesting. That's taking a fair bit off. I probably wouldn't want to go any more than a 240 unless you're really trying to rough into it, but I reckon if you just took your time, 240 you'd probably be alright. Let's try and tidy that up a little bit with 600 just to see what it does. At 600 it's pretty much taking all the white bits off, which is good, taking it back to its natural colour. That's pretty much skimming the surface. No, that's not too bad. Right. Now, I don't know what sort of ferrules you've got, so again, if you're doing this in a lathe, it'll be a doddle. If you're doing it off a lathe, doing it vertically is difficult, so if you can roll it on your thighs when you're trying to spin the cue round to catch everything, make it like a circle as it's spinning, that's probably your best bet. So, what should we start with? Now, I don't want to take anything off this ferrule, because I know as soon as I put a bit of sandpaper near it, there's going to be people making comments going, "Oh, that's just not the way to do it." Well, we have to disagree on some of that. If I'm taking lots of ferrule off, I get it. But let's pop a bit of 600 on there and just see what that does. Now, I've actually got this, I'm spinning it vertically, so I don't normally do it that way. But my fingers are actually touching the top of the tip. So that's where the majority of any wear is going. It's not really doing loads. There's nothing dropping down. So we've got a bit of glue and God knows what on that. There are super glue removers you can use, and I've been asked to do a video on that, which I'll probably do at some point. But what I would say is, if you put too many super glue removers around there, you have to be real careful, because hey, that's if it starts to sink into the super glue you've got, then the tip can come off. So I would just do this slowly, just spinning the cue, and just every few spins have a look, see how you're going. And I'll generally check with a vernier to measure the tip before and after. Sometimes even during if I think it's getting close, but this is more polishing. Now the 600 I use, some 600s are actually quite coarse. Crazy enough, this feels more like a polishing paper. So there's different makes do different things. So this is really skimming the surface. So make sure that when you've got a 600 that you can feel what it's actually like. There's very little resistance there, so I'm not going to be taking a lot of something like a 240 and pull it. I know if I did that too much, it would actually be sanding my skin off. So that's a good guide. That's not bad. 1200. Again, I'm feeling the ferrule with this one as well, because I said there's a bit of glue on there, and I just wanted to skim that to start with, just to see what it did. Excuse me. Run your fingers around her as well. As you spin it, you'll be able to feel if there's anything on there. Especially if you've got eyes like mine. You know, I can't always see dead close up. So, not too bad. Right. Now, I'll stick a 2000 grit on there to polish it a little bit. But what I like to do, if I've got any of these type of ferrules, it's obviously not brass and that, to get it back to black and that, I'll either use an oil, a linseed oil, or you'll find in the States, they pretty much use waxes. I've got my own waxes and that I use. And this is an oil wax, so I've got lots of different things in this formula, so just want to dab of that on there. And this should actually bring it up quite nicely. So gently pop that round there. Now I'm going to try and spin that again. As I say, we're not on a lathe, so it won't be ultra brilliant. I like to do some of these these type of videos by hand because that's pretty much how everyone else is going to do it. That's why I don't pick out a lot of the gear that I might use, because you won't have it. So it's very manual. Right. So if I could just skim the top again, might give it a little bit of definition between the sides, hopefully. So that's pretty much it. So I would do a slightly different job normally, but don't forget the ferrule was a bit like that, so I had glue all over it. It's not the greatest, but I like that. It's I'll probably take a little bit more time on it, but it certainly cuts all right, so I quite like those. I don't play a great deal of pool myself. Some people say I don't play a great deal of snooker, but I do enjoy it, so I'd like to have a bit of a go with that just to see how that reacts. But it sits on there nice, seems to sound okay. You could certainly make that more curved if you want. If I was going to do that, I would use the 120, but I think that's fine. So I think that'll do for now. It gives you a good idea anyway, and I hope Kev's happy with that. So thanks for watching, and when Kev's finished experimenting, no doubt that it will be on our website for sale. So keep an eye out. I'll be advertising on Facebook, no doubt. I'll see you on the next video.